Right, I think we're live. Hello, everybody. Everyone's doing good today. Good morning. Hope you have your coffee, tea, whatever. Pick your poison. It's a pretty good day. It is chilly. I'm looking out the window right now. We were supposed to get like 6 to 10 inches of snow over the last like 2 days, but in reality, maybe 2 we got, maybe right around there. It was just mostly very wet. So not bad, although we're supposed to get hit again this weekend, so we'll see what happens there. But every time a weather system comes in, lucky me, I get migraines, so that was yesterday for me in the afternoon anyway. Ironically, saw my neurologist in the morning. I'm like, yeah, I got a little headache. Did some errands on my way home. By the time I got home, like, ugh, man, it's the worst, but it is what it is. What can you do? Anyway, back in the studio, I started this lovely lady last week. Not last week, it was still this week. It was Monday. Just a mere days ago, we started painting her. So I'm using watercolor, and we're just going to continue along with working on finishing all of her skin tones and her facial features and getting a little bit into the hair and maybe some background washes. This area here, I have her where she's kind of holding a frame. And then what's going to go in here is going to be a little bit more like chaotic mixed media elements. So I'm excited about getting into that stuff, even though my plan thus far is fairly non-specific. So I will need to work on it a little bit. And I didn't do this ahead of time. Sometimes I do. I got my little pipette. It's a little plastic, squeeze in the water. So I always like to grab some water, just suck it up in there, and then I pre-moisten all my pans. I don't know which colors I'm gonna necessarily use. I mean, I know for sure this what I'm gonna use for skin tones, but just have everything ready because it just dries and then the colors are good to go again after that. And I love how this particular paint right here shows up on camera in my palette. It's just like, pow! I am a different color than everything else. I kind of love it. This is a pearlescent color. And I've been using, this is a pearlescent here too, and then there's one here too. But I've been using this one a bit in the skin tones in different areas, and the rose one as well in the lips. So it's kind of a fun little subtle element, and I can see it is very subtle. But there is like a little bit of a sheen that's being picked up, and it comes across as a bit of a reflection for the lighting hitting where the camera is right now. But we'll keep building layers and control where it's going to shine through. I might put some into the eyes as well. That seems like that would be a good place to work out with that a little bit also. I like that element. Just small little details to kind of make it just a little something extra, something nice. So we can give the paints just a second to kind of saturate a little bit so they're easy to work with. Anyway, how's everybody in the world this morning? Anyone working on creative projects? Got something fun going on today or over the weekend? Anything awesome by chance? Is today the 12th? 11th. Today's the 11th. Should I think it was I can't keep anything straight. Days, times, whatever. But we're here. I managed to get here on time. That's amazing. Alright, you know what? I've been trying to be really good about keeping my studio cleaned up as I'm working, because there's not tons of space here, but boy. I did finally yesterday go through all my collage materials that were pre-cut out and sorted out one of the bins that was overflowing. That was first brush. Ugh. Split it into two and kind of cleaned it out. Because I have a tendency to I'll take a piece that I want to use for collage, I'll cut it so it fits a shape or a space, and then whatever bits are left I throw back in there. And some of those bits are not terribly useful for the way that I work, so while I was going through and separating out something that's actually an image from things that are just textures and colors, then I also kind of was getting rid of some of those things. Some of the things are just edges of pages, like the white border pages. I'm not going to use that for anything, so into the recycling bin for lots of that stuff, and just much more organized, and should be easier to find things. Found other stuff that was organized? Misfiled, I guess. So getting everything into its proper place and finding stuff I forgot I had, because it probably dated back to when I only had one bin for things. Alright, where to start? I think before I go in to start working more on the face, I might work a little bit on getting the hand caught up a little bit. The shoulder, the neck and shoulder, I'll do a little bit more on also, but I'm gonna kind of let that just become suggestions. If that makes sense. Hello, Jim. Good morning. 11th. Oh, it's your birthday. Happy birthday, Jim. Yay, I hope you're doing something super fun, either today or the weekend, to celebrate. That's awesome. Happy birthday. Hope you have a really good coffee or tea for the day to get you going. Awesome. Awesome, awesome. Okay. So, let me straighten a little bit. Kinda. Alright. Shall we start mixing some colors? I'm gonna start getting some of my skin tone parts that I'm using. Oh, I think I got a little bit of the green there. Oops. Take care of that. That's what rags are for. This color that's here, like these are all half pans, and then this one I bought after the fact. It's a full pan, so it doesn't fit well. I have it kind of crammed and it's sticking up right there. And it's English red, I think is what it's called. There might be other names for it, but I found that it's quite nice for getting some skin tone. It's like an earthy, it's red toned with some earthiness to it. A little orangish, but not bright, if that makes sense. You know, a little bit more caffeine and I'll be able to make words better. Just planning to hunker down for the blizzard. Yeah, I don't blame you. I did my grocery shopping yesterday so that I don't have to leave the house again. Or until all that's over with, I hope. Gotta love it. But, you know, when you live in the Midwest, you just kind of know it's coming. It's just a part of life. Oh, it made me really laugh yesterday, though, because we'd had just a few inches of snow, but it was very, very wet snow. When I left yesterday to go to my appointment, some kids had been out and back, because I live in a condo, so there's some other people and a couple of families that live here also. So several people, I don't know, I assume kids, had been out making snowmen, which was very cute. And then as I'm walking past it, because it's like, walk out the back door, I can see the back of the snowman, and you walk past it to get towards the parking lot where the cars are. I about died laughing, because once you got up close to it, you could see that the snowman, or snow woman, had absolutely giant boobs, including really big ice nipples. It's the most ridiculous thing, and it just made me laugh so hard. What a weird randomness. Sometimes the most bizarre things will get you for some reason. But yeah, we got some weird kids around here apparently. Gotta love it. People are strange. But that's what makes them interesting. Oh yeah, got my groceries too and stuff, so also hunkering down, probably work on some art, maybe read a little. That would be novel, wouldn't it? That'd be nice. I'd like to finish one of the thousands of books that I've started. It's not really thousands, but it's definitely over 10. Yeah, reading, working on art, maybe watching some movies, maybe watch some show that I've been meaning to watch for a long time. and I have a hard time starting shows because I have commitment issues with TV. That makes sense, right? When shows are just like, there's no end to it, and it's, you know, I guess they can be anywhere from 8 to 12 episodes primarily these days, right? But they're often like an hour long, and it just goes on and on and on, and it's too much. It's just tell me a story with a beginning and an end. That's why I'm okay with doing the shows where it's like there's a season. It's one season, one story. So it's just like one long movie. I'm okay with that. I can do that, usually. Usually I'm up to it. But, yeah, I don't know. So the ones that just go on and on, the Game of Thrones-esque type things, like, no. Nope. Nope. I'd started watching The Boys quite some time ago, and I actually rather liked it, but it was just, like, I finished the first season, and I think I did actually go back and start the second season, and just never finished it, never continued with it, never got back to it. It's just too much. Tell me when it's over, then just tell me what happened. Actually don't, because by then I won't remember who anybody is or what was happening. Yeah. I don't know why. Just shows. It's too much. Too much. And what's even funny on top of that is lately, if we're gonna watch a movie at night, and I'll be like, oh, hey, I'm flipping through, you know, as you do. Why don't we watch this one? And my partner will ask me, how long is it? These are the things I didn't even think about. How long is it? It's a movie. It's not Oppenheimer long, I'm sure, but then I'll look at it and I'll be like, oh, it's like 2 hours and 20 minutes. And then it's like, do we really want to watch a movie that long when, like, it's already 9:30 at night? So, it is kind of funny that way, I guess. Never something I used to think about. But man, why do movies always have to be so long now, too? Do all movies need to be 2 hours long plus? I don't know. I kind of don't think so, but that seems to be the trend. At least most horror movies aren't that long. At least I have that. There are some. But even last night I put on... We ended up deciding to watch a 2-hour movie because it's what looked interesting, but The Believers, I believe it was called. No pun intended. 1987 movie with Martin Sheen, who was in some great films, but given some of the comments he had made, I don't know, is he still alive? That he'd made later in life, I kind of almost have a hard time taking him seriously. But nonetheless, oh, it was alright. I'd give it a solid okay. Not bad, but okay. But also, some of the things just felt very, like, low-key racist? Like, these people believe different things than we do, so obviously it's scary. That kind of thing. Obviously it's scary and threatening, and we shouldn't be okay with it. So there's some of that, which, like, right the first scene, you're like, oh, that's what this is gonna be. But, yeah, I watched it anyway, and one really awful scene, and this is going to be a little bit of a spoiler. Doesn't really tell you the story, but it tells you something's going to happen for a movie that came out nearly 30 years ago. Towards the end, because it's like, it's not voodoo. It's similar to that, though. Like, there's these people practicing dark magic. This guy from the Caribbean is coming up from some rich dude and performing dark magic, so they'll be successful. But people who get in their way, they do these crazy, awful things too. And this one woman, she like develops what looks like a blemish, keeps getting bigger and bigger. She gets sick, and then the horrific thing. This is just going to be a 30-second thing, so if you're creeped out by stuff, Natalia, hello! Hi, how are you today? We're just getting into some weird things. It ends up being like a spider nest, and I hate spiders so much. I hate spiders. Ugh. And that was very kind of disturbing scene. That I just was dying while that was happening, but pretty hard to creep me out these days, though, so kudos to that film for definitely creeping me out with that scene. But yeah, the whole "you're different, so you're obviously bad" thing that could fly in the 80s, like, I just, like, oh, that's what this is. Okay. Just could be much better. Could be less awful. I don't know. It was the 80s. I do have a soft spot for, well, I guess like particularly 80s horror films, because a lot of them are really silly and ridiculous, and there's all these tropes and the fashion, just all these things about it that just feel kind of nostalgic and I mean, just silly, I guess, but kind of have a soft spot for it. I'll admit it. '80s hair. That's the whole thing. Okay. Well, starting to get some form appearing here a little bit. It's getting also fairly wet, so I can like move around the painting a little bit while one area is kind of maybe drying a little bit. I can work on other things and then come back to it. To get in some more details and things. All right. Getting there. We'll still, yeah, the fingers are quite flat still at the moment, and I'll need to match the tone of the face a little better. I'm using a little bit of a highlight here, so before it's completely set, I can pick up a little bit of paint, but you have to be real gentle and careful about doing that with watercolor, because that can, you scrub too much, you can definitely wreck your paper. So just very gently. Very, very gently picking up a little bit of color there. Where's my picture? I have so many screens up to keep track of things. I lose track of which thing is where. But that's also just me. Okay, so shift over here a little bit to the pictures so I can see the neck area a bit. Like I mentioned, I'm not going to get too much in the weeds of any details here. I just kind of little suggestions, and then other things will come in, kind of bleed in. There's a plan. It's not fully formed yet, but there's a plan. It's all gonna work together as we go. We'll get there. Okay. So let's get a little bit of the pearlescent. I'm gonna still stick with some warmer skin tones for the shoulder area. Mostly the light's coming from this side, so it is much brighter. So I'm just kind of gonna do some suggestions. I'm not worried too much about this edge because I'm going to pull that in with acrylic paint after the fact, so if it gets a little lost, I still want to see where it is. I mean, I can always go back in and draw it again, but yeah, I will probably mask it off and do a really crisp, nice, clean edge, clean bounding area there to create like a clear, separate boundary. I've even had some thought of, like, if I wanted to get really complicated with this, excuse me, I could actually even cut this out, the interior part of this frame, and kind of stack the artwork where it would be framed and this piece would be in the front mounted on where what you were seeing was behind, and then maybe elements coming forward. That might be a little more ambitious, and handling the framing of that would probably be not just kind of beyond my capability to do myself, but then expensive to have somebody do. So, you know, maybe another time I'd build more into that kind of thing, but I'm always kind of fascinated with the idea of playing with the different planes, playing with dimensional elements in paintings. And I've found some ways to experiment with it a little bit in some past works, but it's still something that I'd like to do a little bit more with. I was actually really inspired by the artist Suzanne Jackson. Like, after seeing some of her work, this was some years ago before the pandemic, that's what inspired me to start to experiment with that kind of thing, with different materials within the same piece. She has been an artist for a long time. She was very prominent in the 60s, 70s, and then she kind of went off the main radar, but the work that she's been creating, there was a exhibit of her newest works, I believe at, it was the Savannah Art Museum, Modern Art Museum in Savannah, and there are these beautiful hangings of fabrics and woven things and color, and they're just ethereal. And the way that they were hung in the room in layers, and you could walk past and behind them and the light would kind of shine through it, and it was just really, really incredible. And that inspired me a lot to kind of play around with like utilizing more than just the image itself to tell a story, to start using textures and other things along those lines, and experimenting a little further in that regard. So always recommend seeing art wherever, anytime you have the chance, because you never know what's going to inspire you. You never know what's going to completely change the way that you work or do a thing. Because that's kind of what happened with me. Like, my work doesn't look anything like hers. And her work is just amazing. I'd tell everybody they should check it out. But very inspiring. And there's been a few other things like that where just, you know, unexpected places you come across something that just hits you in such a way that it becomes a major influence when you didn't expect it. Not yet another painter that I can refer to in that sense is Emma Amos, who I saw when I was at the Philadelphia Art Museum with my family. That was more recent, I think 2 years ago that I saw that exhibit. But there's so many amazing artists, many whom may never have even heard of. And it doesn't have to be people doing the same kinds of things you're doing to just have an incredible influence and impact on you. So yeah, go see the things. See what's out there when you have the chance. And I recognize some irony in myself being the one to say this because I don't know a whole lot. But when I do try to make the most of it. And I try to be open to seeing what... I love seeing what people are doing. I love seeing what people are creating. What I'm doing there is still a little bit dangerous because I was just lifting a little bit of paint. You have to be really careful when you're doing that on paper. Oh, Heidi, hello. Wanted to let you know I've been binge watching quite a few of your past live videos. Oh, wow, thank you. Your work is incredible and has been inspiring me a lot with my own art. Oh, I'm so happy to hear that. Thank you, thank you. If anything, I'd like to encourage people to be creating and doing things and experimenting and not being afraid. That's, like, I think so important to me. And I think that it's lessons that go from on the paper or on the canvas to our own lives. And I'm still working on doing that myself. Lessons that I learn in this studio, I then try to apply to life in general. And sometimes easier said than done, but I think it's helpful to think of things that way. Like letting go of perfection is one. Like the black and white thinking that comes with perfectionism. That's a tough one to kind of get past, but it is, I think, important to try. Especially in the studio when we're creating, it's how we get past hurdles, it's how we learn, it's how we grow. But in every area of our lives, for sure. And I know I can find myself in those places still. trying to be better at recognizing it when it happens, because that's the trick. That can be surprisingly difficult. And coming along, I'm gonna ultimately probably have to put this highlight back a little bit, but I'm not gonna do that until I have like the other areas around it too closer to the darks that I know I want. Because right now that's definitely too bright, but a step at a time. And why you keep seeing me do this is that I have my image on the screen, my reference image, and my microphone stand is like right in front of it. So I might be able to use my brain here for a second, and still gonna be in front of a screen, but maybe if I do this, it's a little better. Kind of. Nothing is safe in the studio. It's all chaos. It's all just things waiting to be knocked over or spilled on. Nothing is safe. Okay. Refilling my coffee. This is quite cold now already. I guess it's kind of cool in here, but I'm just always hot. I've been this way for years now. I'm just run hot, I guess. Don't know why. Oh well. Okay, let's see. Just painting the hair there, but I'm going to let that lift a little bit. Maybe soften the edges here a little bit. My intention was to be working with less layers initially, but I seem to like fall back into old habits of lots of light layers as I'm working here, so it's okay. It is alright. Not hurting anything, it's just something that I personally would like to work at. And the whites of our eyes are never just white. And then they are also subject to shadows and highlights. It's a little too blue on this side. And I may or may not get into a lot more detail with like the eyebrows. Because after a while, when you get the shadows about where they're meant to be, like in this eyebrow, the details of the hairs don't matter anymore. And I'm also trying to decide if I want to, with the hair, like how much do I want to do it all with watercolor? Do I want to add in something else to help like get a really nice texture with it? So that is also something that I'm considering. One thing I can struggle with getting started on things. I don't know if anybody else experiences this. There's a term for it. Nick Howland, 69. Hello. How are you today? What do they call it? Like some kind of something paralysis. Task paralysis, is that it? I think where it's just hard to get over the initial push of energy to start doing a thing. Sometimes it can be starting an art project, or it can be doing the dishes or anything, making a phone call. I think it tends to be something that I've heard a lot in conversations talking about ADHD, but well, that's what I have ADHD, and that is a real thing that I struggle with. I think it can be something that anybody can deal with in certain circumstances where it's like you don't know where to start maybe, and everything becomes so overwhelming in that sense of not knowing how to approach a thing and not feeling confident about how to do it, so you just don't ever start or do it. And when that's something I'm trying to be better at. And again, it's something that like I've gotten better at in more so in my studio than I have in life in general. But oh, now hey, I've totally forgotten what I was going to talk about. What was I talking about? What was I thinking about? Oh my, no. I am my own worst enemy. Keeping a train of thought, painting at the same time. Nope, not happening. It's terrible. Ooh, let's get some of this pearlescent paint in the eyes. It'll come back to me, I'm sure. I mean, relatively, sure, maybe. What's I thinking about? I think I've gotten to that point though. Like I have multiple canvases in various states of being done in my studio. And I have some things that are actually, like, quite frankly, kind of old. Like I've started them a long time ago. And I want them to be done. They need to get done. But I've reached a point where I'm not sure about my next step. What to do next, or how, like I may even having an image in my head of how I would like to potentially address a thing, but then not actually having the know-how of how to get there. Like I can picture in my head what I might like it to be, but I don't have either the skills or the materials or whatever to do it. Because my ambitions are outpacing my abilities or whatever. I don't know. It definitely is something that happens. And I've been trying, I don't know. There's was it Mel Gibson? Is that right? Gibson? Mel, I think so. It's something like that. Where she came up with the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 rule about starting something. Like even just, like if you can't get out of bed in the morning, you just are in one of those states where you don't think the day is going to be anything, you don't want to face anything, and you just can't get yourself going, to just be like, count down from 5. Okay, this, in concept, I think it's great. It's never actually worked for me, but 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, get up, move. I've never quite been able to make that work for myself, but that's one way to kind of consider handling that sort of paralysis. Just don't think, just jump in. You know? Certainly an option. I don't know. I'm pretty sure when I started this train of thought, like I was thinking about something in particular, but my gosh, it's just, it isn't just gone now. Ah, gotta love it. That's something I really hate, I guess, about myself, about whether that's ADHD or something else, but that it's like an inability to hold on to a thought combined with a hard time controlling like what you're capable of remembering at any given point. Like I know this information, but I can't access it when I want it. Those sorts of things. Does that sound weird? I find it to be a very real struggle. And sometimes if you're put on the spot about something and you can't respond, and you feel like you can't respond in an intelligent way, you know, and that's where I get really upset about it. So I think there's an emotional component to it. There's they talk about trauma having an impact on your ability to recall things as you need, and almost creating like separate zone, like where all of the networks in your brain of all your memories and information don't always connect to each other the way they should, because you've like compartmentalized things and it has like this cascading effect on other areas of thought. And especially if you add any kind of emotional element into it. I think that's one of the things that used to bother me almost the most, was that I was in some kind of, there was some kind of a conflict. And you wanted to be able to stand up for yourself. But the moment that the conflict happens, your brain just goes blank. And there's like a fear response aspect to that, which is very frustrating too. Yeah, that's something that's kind of, I don't know, maybe not exactly the same, but still similar in the way that sometimes our minds work in an attempt to help us, but ultimately ends up not being that helpful. Right? And I am so fascinated by psychiatry, by understanding these mechanisms, why we do the things we do, why we function the way we function, what's going on, what's happening. And then the flip side of that, like how to get better. Like how to maybe not have those things have as much control. I dropped a brush right off the bat when I started streaming on the floor. Now I'm just dropping them everywhere. Some days, y'all. I have had a song stuck in my head for weeks. Also. And it's not so much that I'm changing the subject, but this song has literally been going through my head non-stop. Like, it's become this earworm, but I like it. So that's been okay, I guess. And it's this duet. And it is... What is the names? They're not people that I listen to much, but I just love this song. It's Chinchilla and Ren, I want to say, are the names of the artists. And it's called Chalk Outlines. And I have been low-key obsessed with that song. It's been in my head constantly. It's not necessarily even close to the kind of music I probably normally listen to, but I guess it's just been speaking to me somehow. It just feels, it's like relatable, we'll say. And it's just like a very nicely composed song with a verse to chorus, it changes, bridge. Like it just, it's nice. It's if you like random kind of emotional songs, and you might check that out. I seem to have this weird, like, kind of weakness almost for duets. Like, not... And I don't mean like some Barry Manilow style thing, right? I mean like there's one by Lamb, Back to the Beginning, I think maybe is the title, and there's one by Churches. So there's just like this handful, and for some reason they often have hit me in an interesting way, and it's sort of curious, and maybe I would explore that further. Jim, I'm trying to get the habit of getting out of bed, then going for a walk every morning. Oh, that's a good one. Then keep moving for the whole morning instead of sitting in front of my computer first thing in the morning. Oh man, I'm so with you on that. That's a great goal. Wintertime, much less walks for me, especially where I live, but my thing, and it's apparently, I hear a lot of people say this on ADHD boards. They're like, sitting down is your biggest enemy. And it's really the truth. Like I get up, feed the cat, get my breakfast, have coffee, and make coffee. But after that point, like sitting with my coffee, like I'll want a few minutes to like watch what's on the news and check all my emails on my phone and get sucked into this thing where it's like, just have a really hard time. Move, get up and go. It becomes that task paralysis thing. So I have been also working on that too at the same time, Jim. So I'm with you there. I'm trying to just be like, okay, once I've finished my breakfast, put the dishes in the dishwasher, don't sit back down, just come straight into the studio. And even then, yeah, sitting in front of the computer can be dangerous too, even if it's work things, because I will have a tendency to go down rabbit holes that are still work things that do ultimately need to be done, but I will lose track of the things I'm really supposed to be working on now. And an hour and a half goes by, and sure, I did that thing. That is something that's on my list to do eventually, but I didn't do anything that needed to be done this week while I was doing that. So there's those kinds of frustrations, and I think sitting down really is, it's the sit. It's like the biggest enemy of everything. So yeah, convincing yourself to just push through it is, like you said, just keep moving. I'm trying to do that. As well. I've kind of started this week really focusing on that a little bit more. So I'm your cheerleader to do it, because I'm trying to do it too. We got it. We can do it. It's such a silly thing, but why it can be so hard nonetheless. And it's not, I guess it isn't so much that it is a silly thing, it's like a perception of it being a silly thing that should be easy. And that's another area where it's like we have to learn to not be so judgmental of ourselves too. The fact that there are things like that we may struggle with, yeah, we'll work at figuring out what works best for us to optimize, to accomplish the things we want to do, but also recognize that none of the things that we struggle with are, moral failings or problems with who we are. It just, we're human. Some people are naturally better at some things than others based on lifelong habits, how we grew up, how we're raised, how our brains work and function, our particular set of hormones, our particular set of genetics. Like, there's so many things that go into all of it, and learning to figure out how to work with both our strengths and our weaknesses as we perceive them, or the things that we would like to do differently. All of those things are, it's just, what actually works for us to do the best we can do. Like, literally, as I'm sitting here painting, that song is still just like looping in my head. At least parts of it are. Of people who naturally have amazing eyelashes. Watercolor is definitely a little easier to work with when you're working with it in a way of a light painting. Light colors, light, well, everything. When you have lots of intense colors and dark shades, it is a little bit more tricky. And watercolors are naturally very translucent. I've just been like holding my coffee while I'm doing this for the last 10 minutes. This is the thing I do, apparently. This is my favorite brush. It's a number 6 Kolinsky. Holly, I never spend a lot of money on brushes because, well, budgets need to be reasonable, but this is probably the most expensive brush I have bought. Probably 20 something, maybe. So I'm very careful to try to take very nice care of it. But boy, this is... as much as I hate the thing of, you know, sometimes it pays to invest money in quality materials. Unfortunately, there tends to be some truth to that. Not always. And it depends on what you're doing and what you need, but this brush is a joy to work with. Okay, we're getting there with the eyes a bit. Of course, they're the darkest area on the painting now because that's what I've been really focusing on. So everything has to adjust, right? And it will. This is just part of the process. Like 1 minute you think you're so close to being done, but then once you really render out an area, you're like, oh yeah, nope, not done on anything. We got a long way to go. And that's just how the process goes. And it can be tricky to get layer up your colors with watercolor to get darks, because also after a certain point you can just start to pick up your colors that you've already laid down with a damp brush. Like they're just gonna start, the paper reaches a point where it can't hold anymore, and like, well, that's all we're gonna do. And that can be very limiting. So having at least decent paper helps. Watercolor, I think, for anybody who's ever curious about getting started with it, if you're going to invest in one of your elements, brushes, paper, paint, what's going to give you the easiest time to learn is actually going to be the paper. You can work with student grade paints just fine. You can work with some really affordable brushes and do just fine with them. Cheap paper, not great paper, is going to give you a hell of a time to work with. That would be my recommendation for anybody who wanted to ever try to dabble with watercolor. You can go cheap on everything else. Spend some money on the paper, as most, like, you don't need to spend $80 on a block, but just if you got X budget, you want probably the bigger part of your budget to go to the paper. And that might sound crazy because it's like, it's just paper. You buy more, you won't spend that much and you just use it. Whereas your brushes you're going to use for a really long time probably. But it's like the biggest difference maker. It really is. It's gonna affect whether you have a good time about it or not, for sure. I mean, there's already frustrations when you first start with watercolor, learning how much water to use, how things are gonna blend together when you're working with water on paper, and how they're gonna blend on the paper. All these factors are already things that you're gonna be kind of battling against. So if you can minimize some of those extra battles too by doing that, that can be really an advantage. And even this paper that I'm working with is not like the best. This is 140 pound is what they call it, the weight of it. That's the thing that matters with watercolor paper, the weight of it. So that's going to be like how thick your sheets are, how dense and thick they are. So that controls how much moisture they can handle and how much buckling they'll do, where they start to wave around, right? So what was my point? Yeah. This is the lowest I think you can really buy in terms of it actually being watercolor paper that I'm aware of is 90 pound. And that's the stuff that's going to give you a really hard time. It is going to be the most affordable. And you might think I'm just learning. It's fine. Get that. It's going to make things difficult. If you paint light washes very lightly, then you'll be fine with it, and you might consider like stretching the paper first. And there's YouTube videos devoted to like how to do that if you were interested. But this is 140 pound. And I always think I would really like to get some 300 pound paper. But I just, like I said, you do the best you can for the budgets that you work within. And of course, the bigger the paper you get, like this, the more expensive it gets too. So it's always just like, it's balancing. You gotta be real with what you can do, what makes sense to spend, all those things. But that's what we do. Best we can. Gotta pay bills. Gotta eat. Unfortunately, those have to be some of our priorities, right? Such as it is. The more I learn and the more that I do, the further along I get in my career. Those are kind of the moments where you can reevaluate maybe how much you can spend on things to change your budget, but that all just has to come, that kind of thing has to come with time. Or unless, you have a trust fund, then, go for it, get whatever you want. And maybe send some to me while you're at it. I'm just kidding. I love noses. They're so weird. But so are ears. And I love ears too because of the same thing. Anatomy. So strange. Well, these lines are a little too strong at the moment, but we're getting there. Okay, sorry, I'm getting absorbed, which means I get quiet. There can be a lot to balance when you're working like this, trying to control the ebb and flow of the paints and such. Feels like slow progress, but there is a lot going on and I'm pretty happy with it so far. It's just funny that the little areas that I've rendered most of the shadow into kind of almost look strange compared to other areas. Like the nose actually has a very dark shadow. Pretty much like as dark as this area is right here. So that might be the next area that I'll kind of focus on trying to build up. And then here will be super dark as well. And I've already started getting there, but there should still be some warmth in that shadow, and it's a little cool at the moment, so we'll just keep working, keep building, kind of using the paint to almost like sculpt, so to speak. Sculpt up the curves of her face, the highlights and the shadows. Just gotta watch neglecting areas too. I'm kind of using a bit of a limited palette, which works to my advantage in terms of like I'm not gonna not be able to recreate a color to match one area, but it certainly makes things easier on yourself to spread around the love while you're working, you know? So you don't get too far ahead of or behind any particular area, and that can be kind of easy to just get focused on one area and forget to sort of step back and see what else is going on. And that I think is kind of also a problem with sitting while you work. Because while sitting, you're always seeing the work from this angle. When you're standing up, you can just, as easy as taking a breath, step back and take a look and see how things are developing. So you have to be a little bit more deliberate about it, I suppose, when you are working like this. For me, what helps is looking at the screen with what my camera is viewing, because simply by the nature of what I'm seeing on screen is only this big. It is like seeing it from across the room, and that gives me a bigger picture. And also painting flat is when I'm sitting here and my painting's there, there's like, you know, this big angle and distance. it can distort your perspective. And I've already got the drawing there. Like, I don't have to recreate the drawing while I'm sitting at this angle, so I don't have to worry so much about that, but that can definitely give you some weird perspectives and things where, well, I'm sitting here, oh, this looks right, but then once you stand up and you see it from across the room and you hold it up straight, or you just hold it up straight, suddenly you realize that you've distorted it because you're seeing it at such a weird angle. So there's all these different elements to consider. Like, who would have thought? Like, man, I just want to draw a picture. A lot of it's just learning by doing, too. I've made plenty of mistakes in my days. I've done a lot of learning by doing. So, always happy to share what I've learned to maybe make something easier for anybody else. No reason everybody has to struggle to get things every single time. How evolution works, right? Somebody learns to use a tool, you teach the people that come after you, and then keep getting better at it. Does that apply to making videos about making art? I don't know. Probably not. But either way, anybody ever has any questions about anything, I'm happy to share anything that I can that might help. Still plenty I don't know. Plenty and then some. I like to use this gold color. I can't remember what it's called. It's really intense, but it gives some very nice life to warm skin tones. And I'm not a purist when it comes to, I mean, seeing how I work, it's just everything. So I don't mind going back in after the fact when working on watercolor, and as much as I prefer to maintain my highlights naturally, I can always add back in using some, you know, gouache or something else, and that's okay. it just depends on how fussy you are about being like a classical something in the way that you work. And for me, I'm not. Of course, I do nothing the proper way. I imagine people who've spent their lifetimes learning to use watercolor paints to do artwork would probably just be absolutely cringing at the way that I work with some things. And I imagine the same is true for about everything that I work with and do. I don't... like, I learn some of the things for the sake of, like, making the work whole. Like, I don't want to create work that's going to fall apart, you know, the paint's gonna peel off after I make it. I don't want that sort of thing to be an issue. But in terms of techniques, I hold nothing to any kind of pedestal of what is right or wrong or the proper way. I know what has worked, I know what hasn't worked, and I'm still willing to try all the things that are in between. Okay. I think I would like to probably start working onto the shadow of the nose. Yeah. Don't have a heart attack. I swear I know what I'm doing. All right. Sorry, sometimes you just have to be able to like work a little bit fast. You're like chase the paint edges before they dry. Otherwise your edge is just there. So I've just kind of, that's sort of what I'm doing there. Okay, and then you get to that point where you're lifting the paint as much as you are putting it down. So that's when you got to stop what you're doing, mostly, and let it dry. You paint the board, it's saturated at the moment, so everywhere that I put the darker color just needs to be left be for a while. It's not perfect yet. I say that like I expect it to be in the end. But that helps. That makes a difference in getting there. There's often plenty of warmth in your shadows. It just depends on the color of the light happening around your subject matter. Okay. Alrighty. Making progress. Things are happening. You know, I don't think that I saw any in the last year documentaries that were made last year outside of things that the BBC produced. I wonder if there's anything good to explore or interesting that's out there. Anybody has any recommendations, let me know. Oh, Bimol. Am I saying that right? Yes. Hello. How are you? I'm sorry. I just get absorbed in what I'm doing. Apologies. Hope you're still there. Hello. Yeah, I get a little absorbed and I forget that I'm not just sitting in my studio talking to myself. Oh my goodness. Hello, hello. I probably need to turn on some audio notifications, but I usually just turn the volume on my computer all the way down so I don't like pick up any echoes from anything. But yeah, how are you? Thanks for stopping by, and I apologize for I'm figuring it out. I'm relatively new to streaming on Twitch, so I'm still figuring out the best ways to set things up. There's this tag on this brush and I can't even, it's gotta go. Come on. Oh, goodness sake. Terrible, terrible. I think I'm missing everything. I definitely need some kind of notification system that I can hear, so I will work on that for next time. I tell you what. That's just me having no idea what's going on around me. Typical. That looks so weird right there, that little dark spot. But that will get worked into the hair, into like this bit of hair that's kind of coming down right in front of her face. So I will fix that. Yeah. I think, yeah, you know, you go back and forth when you're working on something like this to like, oh, I like it, I'm happy, oh, it's really not good, am I going to be able to pull this off? At the moment, I feel like it's going to get there. How long will that feeling last? Who knows, but we'll rock it as long as we can. So, yes. Figuring it out. Yeah, I don't like that. The brush is okay for some things, but... that might be a little too dark. Part of that, anyway. Alrighty. That really should be more of a more lighter toned colors here for that particular area of shadow. But it's always kind of fascinating to see how things build. I've been watching the documentary series on YouTube, World War II from the Time Ghost story. They summarize each week, upload Saturday morning. Oh, interesting. They have lots of specials too. Oh, that's cool. I do like that, YouTube series, what is it called? Great Art Explained? Is that it? That's a good one. I enjoy that one. I'm less of a war history buff, but I know a lot of people that really enjoy it, so having good referrals of good ones. There are multiple ones that I have in my watch list, like the things I want to try to track down and watch, but sometimes it's interesting that they can seem to be harder to find when they're not a newer thing. It's like they're just not as carried by different services, maybe. at least for long. I mean, they do, like, obviously YouTube. I've seen some really great documentaries on YouTube. What else? Netflix, I know, has a section, and I think all the streaming services do now. And I know at some point in the last year I like was looking up 2022 documentaries just because I was curious, or what year? 2023. Like, oh, what's coming out? What's out? What's cool? And there are so many, and some of them are probably, like, I'm sure they're all great, but it's always like also finding the thing. I'm curious about a lot of things, but I'm also, I guess, not curious about a lot of things too. So it's always like, oh, what tickles my fancy? What would I like to learn about? Obviously I like art stuff, but there's a lot more than that. There was one that was done on BBC. I've actually seen some pretty good ones on there. That was it was like a nice combination of history and art related to it. It was the Windrush generation, I think it was called, and it was about the folks that came in Britain after World War II. They immigrated to Britain. They were a colony at the time from Jamaica, I think it was, and they were looking to have people come to help rebuild after the war. And people came there, and then what they experienced, like what they came with just the clothes on their back. One gentleman was talking about how his aunt just like stuffed wrapped him in newspaper under his clothes to keep him warm because they didn't have winter clothes to send him back into England, which obviously has winters. And so it was interviewing all of these people that were going to be honored for their contributions to rebuilding the society for all these decades, and the King of England had essentially commissioned portraits to be done of each of them. So a rather small component of it was that the artist would meet the people and maybe talk to them and work, and they would show like a tiny elements of the artist working. And I kind of wished it was a little bit more both things, the interviews as well as that process of the people like making portraits and what they were looking for and how they were trying to pull out the things that they were to represent the people. And then at the end, they somewhere in the palace or some place like that, they revealed all the paintings, and the people were all there to see their portraits made. That was pretty cool. But yeah, like I said, it was probably an hour and a half long in total, maybe. I think it was like 3 half-hour episodes, and just, yeah, good stories, but I would have liked, like, some of the stories seemed to become repetitive, or some things I think were repeated, and then they weren't showing as much of, like, cutting back to what the artists were doing also as much as I thought. I mean, I'm biased. I'm an artist, so of course I want to see that, but all in all, it was quite good, I think. Anyway, random topics to get lost in. I mean, certainly part of it was quite a few of the people they talked about, they came here with nothing. They were asked to come there. And then, of course, times being what they were, people experienced a lot of racism too. Not all of them talked about that, but a lot of them did. And that's always, I mean, it's unfortunate, but it's been the reality for all that time, and still for many that experience these things. There's one documentary that I think is still on YouTube. I don't remember if I saw it on YouTube initially. I think I might have, actually, but it was, I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head. I watched it a couple of years ago. It was about the making of the movie The Exorcist, and it was really interesting. Whether you are a film buff or a horror movie buff or anything, it was a really well done documentary. I think it's like it's an official behind the scenes where they talk to, God, no, I'm gonna space on their names. Blatty and Freakin', is that right? The director and the writer? And when they talk about their creative decision makings, even into the details of like why music was chosen or why it wasn't, it was really, really good. Like, that's what really interests me. It's the same reason that I might go and watch other people paint on Twitch or YouTube, because it's so fascinating to see people's process of the decision-making processes they're going through while they're creating and doing things that are different than what I do. And I'm not a filmmaker. I make some videos and do a little bit of minor editing, far away from a filmmaker, but there's so many parallels in creating just in general. Artist, filmmaker, musicians, woodworkers, like anybody who's doing a creative thing where you're coming up with an idea and finding a way to turn it into reality. And the way that that's talked about was really interesting. And that film is really interesting. I know that at the time it was considered like, you know, very upsetting and frightening. And I think in a lot of ways, just the visceral aspects of it haven't aged well, but the way that it's done for reality, where it's like a mother trying to address there's something wrong with my child and I don't know what it is, and she gets subjected to all of these insane medical tests and all these experts and everything that somebody who has a lot of money to throw at it can throw at it with no answers, and how that's frightening. Like, those elements still work really well. And that's essentially like what the story is, right? It's yeah, I don't know. It's pretty interesting to hear that stuff. Why they filmed where they did, yeah, I love it. I love hearing all that. It's all cool to hear how people think about what they do and why. And maybe there's a little what's the word? Not like if you're, oh man. Damn words. What's the word for if you're like somebody who likes to like peek into other people's lives, so to speak, like, or I'm not thinking like the opposite of an exhibitionist, the person who wants to see that glimpse. I guess I kind of have that in me as a creator. I always like to see where other people are coming from. The whys, the hows, all that stuff. So the main things that are still standing out to me is like, okay, first of all, the cheek is still very flat here. Did my camera just go out? Oh, just for a second. That was interesting. I think there's an issue with my HDMI out cable. So try to keep an eye on that. What was I talking about? Oh yeah. So right here, this area feels flat. You know, I need her whole cheek here to curve, so that will be something I will continue working on. This shadow, that dark spot here, What kind of paint am I using? I'm using watercolors for this so far. So I've got my little paint palette here. My water is incredibly dirty now. I'll use a fresh jar of paper. Hi, Bible. I'm sorry I missed you when you first came in and said hi. Thanks for stopping in. Yeah, working in watercolor, trying to build up and get some nice shadows and highlights. So this right here has gotten it's really dark there, which I'm okay with, but it's just like, it became a spot. Like I need this shadow to smooth out and come out, but this is all quite saturated, so I don't want to work at that anymore. So what I can do, because like all my face is very saturated now, like I can feel the paper, and one thing I can feel is that it's like buckled, so it's kind of a little wavy texture to it, which I think doesn't really show up so much on the camera coming almost straight down, but I don't know, maybe you can see that I can kind of push the paper here, and it sort of goes down because it's poofed up like that. So alright, first of all, I can feel that. I can sometimes feel some dampness, but even if it's not the dampness, the paper will feel like cool. If it's cooler than where the paper is completely dry, I know that the paper is still holding moisture. And it's always, I'm working with a lot of layers, a lot of water, so I have to be careful about not overworking, not destroying the paper as I'm going. So I can do maybe a couple washes in what's going to be like some background area. I can start to do a little bit there. The lips are fairly dry. I suppose I could work on them a little bit, which is mostly just like, it's very, very pink. I need there to be a little bit more skin tone coming through the pinkness, so it doesn't just look like she's wearing some frosty lip gloss from the 90s. But yeah. Oh, my phone just fell out of my pocket onto the floor. It's fine. Oh, sorry. Just a little tiniest bit of ear popping through there, so I don't know if we're gonna see that in the end, but it's there. Yeah. This area, the bottom lip especially here, the hand, continue to render it up to be closer to the face, but it's getting there. And of course the hair needs a ton of work. I'm still trying to decide exactly how I'll handle it. I don't know if it will create some, it could potentially, if I went in there and I went to acrylic paints to do the hair, it could create some kind of odd framing, but it could also work because I'm going to come in here with other materials besides watercolor. So that actually might help balance a little bit. So here's me talking through my thought process out loud while I'm trying to figure out how to handle it. Because that could help to marry her to this area, this framed area that I have down here that I'm going to do with mixed media. Or this could all just stay just watercolor with this section being different, and then it will have more separation. So it's sort of a matter of what do I want to achieve? And as I'm thinking it through, I'm thinking to build in with some acrylic paint actually. And it won't be handled the same as this area, but just yeah, I think right, that's what I'm leaning towards at the moment. We will see, of course, once I actually start to do the thing. I mean, I'm not going to be working on cat hair, I think, or fuzzy of some sort. I'm not actually going to start painting the hair today, so if I were to change my mind on something, it's fine. It wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to do. It's fine. You got time? But I'm thinking, which is always dangerous, but I'm thinking that might be the thing. As a moment ago, I'm like, I need to not put any more water on her face, and then I just keep doing it. This is my problem. I don't know when to stop. One of my problems. One of many problems. Okay, seriously, Lynell, what are you trying to do? I'll just wreck it all because I can't let it go. Okay. Okay, okay. I just start doing the thing they do with kids when they're taking a test and the time's up. Pencils down. Actually, probably should do that with myself. Anyway, yes, let's do a wash, background. What do we want to do? Which might get covered up somewhat also, but having something as a base that we can establish and build off of, I think, is the way to go. And in my mind immediately is going to like a violet or lavender color, and I think so, we can do that. That is a very warm lavender color. I would prefer this to be a little cooler, so we can take tiniest bit of my Payne's Gray that I'm using. It's closer. We're going to add plenty of water. Here we go. That's about... And I'm also mixing over other colors in the palette, like that's where I had all my warm tones. But when I'm working like this, especially on faces and people, I don't tend to use a lot of very like pure colors. I like to have almost all of my colors toned a little bit. There's no cat hair on here because yesterday I was trying to do work and my cat kept just coming and either standing on my keyboard right in front of the screen so that I can't see what I'm doing, or you know, do anything, type on the computer. He'd just stand there and look like he knows exactly what he's doing. And then he'd come and sit on this painting, which happened to be sitting over here too. So I knew I had to work out any of the bits of cat hair. Oh, Jim, I'm old enough to remember when The Exorcist came out in the theater. Ooh, that must have been interesting. There were news stories about people fainting while watching it, right? Oh, speaking of the devil, here's my cat, and I need him to not step on the wet paint, so... I just, hey, no walking on the painting, please. Okay? You're adorable and I love you, but no walking in the painting. Come here, you're gonna get into trouble. Oh, it's standing there. Oh, here's my baby. Yes, I know. This is Watson. My fuzzy butt. Get you in front of the camera. There we go. There. Say hi. He likes to help, don't ya? Also, he likes to come and get me after it's been a couple of hours. Noon is his lunchtime, and even though I know he's been fed, I know he has, he still would rather that I'm out there while he's eating, because he's a nut. That's my nut. Can I just finish what I'm doing? Can I finish? You want to get your tail in there and do some painting? No? Yeah, I didn't think so. I'd have to wash it up anyway. Silly guy. He's such a ham. Especially when I'm streaming. He can get that way when I'm, Now there's cat hair on my nose. Yeah, I do like seeing those old newsreels about people reacting to the movie when it came out, and I think that they show some of it in that documentary I was mentioning earlier. Oh my gosh, the cat hair sticks to the nose. Nope, maybe don't walk on my keyboard while I'm streaming, please. Let's put that over there. He has affected things before by doing that. Yeah, and that's kind of crazy because when you think of how insane that movie was when it came out and how shocking it was to people and then now, you know, kids watch that movie and they think it's dumb or they laugh at it if they're looking for. I mean, if you're comparing it to like the Jason Wu or the Conjurings and the Insidious films and Terrifier, yeah, you're gonna find it to be probably disappointing, but it's still, there are like the effects. I mean, it's all practical. The effects don't all hold up the best. But there's a lot of ways in which it does, and there's a lot of ways in which it's just like an interesting like time capsule of fears and social things, because that's also another thing that is interesting about watching horror movies of a particular era or from particular countries, because they can represent like cultural anxieties and stresses and fears, the things that as a whole we are afraid of. You know, classic example, Godzilla films after dropping the bombs in Japan in World War II. That is kind of a classic example of that. I mean, in the US in the 70s, satanic panic movies, that was everything. That was what everything was for a while. And it was really believed that that was like legitimately things to be feared at that time, right? Yeah. It's interesting to get a glimpse into other cultures and how they manage these fears and how they process things and what it is that's culturally in mind. And yeah, I mean, I will forever be fascinated with my own fascination with horror movies. They're like my comfort zone. Like, I know people who like their comfort zone is some Hallmark films or whatever, but for some reason that's my comfort zone. I cannot explain it entirely. I have looked into it. I've done some like reading about why people enjoy them, and there are lots of reasons and plenty of theories. Also, like psychologically speaking, and I don't know. Sometimes for me, I think that there's an element of like, okay, movie, make me feel something. That can be a part of it. And also the ideas of them being like safe places to process fears or traumas and things. It's like a safe way to do that. Maybe that's part of it. I don't know. I'm still curious about it, and I'm still fascinated by it. Oh, no, baby. Sorry. No stepping on... No. My good boy. Be a good boy, please. These are the for real struggles of the studio cat character. Oh, yeah. Anyway. I think that I'd actually, quite some time ago had Kickstart supported somebody that was making a documentary, like the psychological, mental health and horror films. The psychological correlation. And I was really, really interested in what they would come up with. So I think I, like, you know, way back gave them like $20 or something to help fund it. But then there were, I guess, some issues behind the scenes with mismanaging stuff, and I don't know. My impression is that I don't think it's happening anymore, but I'm not really certain. But there was one on, I think on Shudder, about that same topic, but it was a very light. It was very, didn't really get into a lot of science or theories. It was very light in its coverage of those ideas, but it talked about it a little bit. I can't remember what it's called. It's been years since I've seen it. Right. Yeah, it's getting dry now, so as I've been talking and fussing around with other things and keeping my cat off of the paper, so I can build back in a little bit here for a second anyway. I'm using a little bit of a drier brush technique now just to try to not overdo it. I still have that song in my head from earlier, still. Like one refrain, just repeating over and over again. And I'm not usually a person that can like listen to a song on repeat. Generally, I get bored with things very easily. So, generally kind of hate the idea of that. So it's not that common that I get a song just for weeks at a time. But I do currently. Okay, how are we looking? Well, this is getting weird. I mean, it's getting very blotchy over here, but that's kind of the trick. It's trying to work with watercolor in very saturated ways. It gets a little crazy sometimes. And that's, you know, the paper doing things and paint doing things. I'm really trying not to lose this little like fingertip that's over here. And now this has become super dark. It's just that balancing act of going back and forth, trying to control. Okay, the sweat again, it's reached that point of saturation again, so leave it alone for the time being as I continue to mess with it. Oh my god. I mean, it's going well. Natalia, hello again. I couldn't watch before because people came in and it was an important topic. Oh, of course. You gotta, I mean, life is the thing, right? You gotta do what you gotta do. And I know for a lot of folks, this is like, I mean, depending on where you are in the world, this is time when a lot of people are like working. That's the biggest thing that I struggle with, being able to watch people painting and such online, even though I love it. It's time is always the hardest thing of being able to manage and see things when people are actually doing stuff that you want to see. Weird. Her chin looks too narrow. Okay. Sometimes it's hard to tell what you're seeing. Oh, my camera, what are you doing? Come back. Come back. What's wrong with you? Oh my lord, what is happening? What's your problem? Oh, for a second, I think I saw something for a second. Oh my lord, what? Why? Why? Okay. Well, on that note... Well, I guess that's a sign from the gods to tell me that maybe everything's wet. You said you were gonna like let it be and not destroy it, so let's actually let it be. All right. So, apologies for that. That sucks. I will have to figure out what's happening here and how to fix it. Yeah, stupid camera, stupid hardware, all the things. Anyway, well, we made a lot of progress today. Made a lot of progress and blabbed about stuff and had a couple cups of coffee. So thank you for everybody that's joined. And oh my gosh, I don't know everything going wrong, but the painting itself is looking decent and I need to figure out what is going on. Oh, damn you, camera. I don't know why it's doing that. I don't know if it's the cable itself But technical problems. Unexpected technical problems. Oh, yeah. Guys, I don't know. Some days. I just, anyway, okay. I guess then we can call it here, and I will figure this mess out before next Monday stream. At which point, we'll see. I don't know, maybe I'll work on some of this painting. Here, I just... There. Hi. I will keep working on this painting. Ooh, we're really bright. Oh my god. There we are. Yeah, isn't that interesting how different it looks when you like hold it in different lighting? Anyway, it's coming along really well. I'll see if I want to work on any of the painting part between now and next stream, because maybe next time we can start getting into the hair and this section. You can kind of see just how big this paper is. Yeah, it's coming along. I'll be damned. Just coming along. Yeah, and I'll work out my technical issues. I know, right? It's just, I don't know. I wish I had some idea about what to do about this right now, but I do not know. I'll have to do some searching for suggestions and answers and try to figure out how to fix this thing. Yeah. But in the meantime, I don't know. Oh, sun came out. I don't know who else has to deal with blizzards and things this weekend, but I hope everybody is able to stay safe and healthy, and hopefully, if you are stuck inside, some opportunity to work on some fun creative stuff and read, be cozy, whatever it is. And I will have something I will have something figured out by Monday evening when I'm back at it, 7 p.m. Central. And again, thanks everybody for hanging out during my chaos. Love you all and have an awesome weekend. So I hope to see you soon. Bye.